December 2007. The temperature outside was minus 20 degrees Celsius. A 13-year-old girl stood at the edge of a frozen river, looking across at China. Behind her, a country she had known her entire life. Ahead of her, complete darkness. She didn't know if she would survive the night, but she stepped forward anyway. To understand why someone would cross a frozen river in the middle of the night in winter, you first have to understand what life inside North Korea actually feels like. Imagine waking up every single morning and the first thing you do before you eat, before you speak, is bow to a portrait on your wall. Not a family photo, a portrait of your leader. This is not optional, this is survival. In a small apartment in Haesan, a city in the northern mountains of North Korea, a young girl named Areum lived with her mother and older sister. Her father had been sent to a labor camp 2 years earlier for trading goods on the black market, just trying to feed his family. They hadn't heard from him since. Areum was quiet, curious. She had learned very early in life that asking the wrong question could get your entire family disappeared. So she watched, she listened, and slowly, through whispered conversations between her mother and a neighbor she would only ever know as Auntie, she began to understand that there was a world beyond the mountains. A world where people could say whatever they wanted, eat whenever they were hungry, and nobody was watching. It was Auntie who first said the word that changed everything. China. She had a contact, a broker, someone who helped people cross the river. It wasn't free. Nothing in the black market was free. But Areum's mother had been saving quietly for months. Small things, a little rice here, a traded item there, enough. The plan was simple, dangerously simple. On the night of December 14th, 2007, when the border guards rotated shifts, there was a window. 12 minutes, the broker said. 12 minutes where the section of river near the old mill was unguarded. They would need to cross on foot. Areum's mother held her face in both hands the night before they left. She didn't say, "We are going to be free." She said, "No matter what happens on that river, you keep walking. You do not stop. You do not look back. You keep walking." Areum nodded. She was 13 years old. She had never left her city. The night they crossed was moonless. That was intentional. They moved in silence through the back lanes of Haesan, 3 of them, Areum, her mother, and her older sister, following the broker at a distance, just close enough to see the outline of his jacket. The river appeared out of the darkness, like a road made of ice and shadow. The broker said nothing. He simply pointed, and then he was gone. Areum stepped onto the ice first. She remembered the sound, not a crack, not a break, just a low, hollow groan beneath her feet, like the river was breathing. She kept walking. The Chinese bank was maybe 300 meters away. In daylight, it would have taken 2 minutes. That night, in the dark, in the cold, not making a sound, it felt like crossing an ocean. Halfway across, her sister grabbed her hand. They didn't speak, they just walked. And then, frozen grass, dirt, China. They had made it across, but in many ways, the real danger was only just beginning. Being in China did not mean being safe, not even close. North Korean defectors in China have no legal status. They are not recognized as refugees. If caught by Chinese authorities, they are forcibly returned to North Korea, where the punishment is severe. Labor camps, interrogation, sometimes worse. Areum and her family were taken in by a contact of the broker, a small farmhouse in a rural province of Jilin. They could not go outside during the day. They could not speak loudly. They could not contact anyone. They stayed there for 3 months. Areum would sit by a small crack in the wooden wall and watch the outside world. Farmers, children walking to school, a man on a bicycle, normal things, miraculous things. Note: she learned her first words of Mandarin from a small notebook someone had left behind in the farmhouse. She practiced them silently, mouthing the sounds to herself in the dark. She didn't know why. She just felt that survival would require more than luck. It would require becoming someone the world could not immediately identify. Spring came, and with it, a new broker, a new plan. The route north through Mongolia was brutal but possible. Hundreds of defectors had used it. Some had made it, some had not. They would travel by night bus through China, moving westward across provinces, changing vehicles, trusting strangers with their lives at every stop, and then the Gobi Desert. Areum had never seen a desert before. She had grown up in mountains. The flatness of it, the absolute endless flatness, terrified her more than the river had. At least on the river, she could see the other side. Here, there was nothing, just wind and stars, and the instruction to walk north until they hit a fence. When they reached it, hands bleeding from the wire, legs exhausted from hours of walking in the dark, Areum looked up at the sky, full of stars, and she thought of her father. Somewhere behind her, in a country that had swallowed him whole, she made a promise to him, quietly, in her mind. She would tell the world. Mongolian border guards found them at dawn. For a terrifying hour, they didn't know what would happen, but Mongolia does not send North Korean defectors back. They are instead transferred to the South Korean embassy. When the embassy gates closed behind them, Areum's mother sat down on the ground and didn't get up for a long time. Areum stood and looked at the building around her. Clean walls, warm light, a woman at a desk who spoke Korean and smiled when she saw them. It was the first time in Areum's life that a stranger had smiled at her without wanting something in return. 6 months later, after processing and interviews and a resettlement program in Seoul, Areum walked into a South Korean classroom for the first time. The teacher asked her to introduce herself. She stood up. She said her name, and for the first time in her life, nobody was watching to see if she said the wrong thing. There are estimated to be over 30,000 North Korean defectors living in South Korea today. Each one of them crossed something, a river, a desert, a wire fence that most of us will never have to imagine. This has been the Escapefiles. If this story moved, you share it with someone. These stories deserve to be heard. Rest easy tonight. Like, share, and subscribe for more brave escape stories.